Summer Games Fest has come and gone, and Jeff Keighley has returned to his den to hibernate for the season. With the mystery of unannounced games behind us, and the year pretty much laid out ahead, it's easy to feel a little listless as we wait around for these promised games to drift our way, but that directionless sensation can be counteracted now, at this very moment. Thanks to the wonders of the digital age, the video games of past, present, and future are available at our fingertips via the World Wide Web. Why wait months for new releases when you can play them right now? Here are a dozen games previously featured during Summer Games Fest and its related streams that you can check out in demo form today, as well as some of my vague unstructured thoughts on each of them. LA-based Heart Machine debuted a new trailer for Possessors during Day of the Devs, featuring an animated cutscene by Powerhouse, the Netflix Castlevania people. We had briefly seen the game last year during Devolver Direct, but this time it came coupled with a new playable demo. Heart Machine made one of my favorite games of all time, Hyper Light Drifter, so when I heard the developer was making a Metroidvania next, my favorite subgenre of games, I couldn't help but set my expectations unreasonably high. Unfortunately, I didn't come away from the demo with a super favorable impression. It started out strong with a demonic incursion and a mortally wounded girl forming an uneasy alliance with a unreasonably handsome hellspawn.
Oh no, he's hot!
But once I got to the gameplay, the general movement and traversal felt a little too stiff for my liking. I was clinging onto surfaces I didn't intend to grab, and the wind-up on the run animation made it kinda cumbersome to use at times, especially on shorter platforms. The default controls also wouldn't have been my first choice, and it took a little bit of adjusting to get used to. Art direction is all over the place. The portraits and character models look pretty nice, but they're mostly in these stylistically bland settings. There are attempts to avoid making environments feel samey, but the muted drab color palettes used for things like office buildings, sewers, and rundown industrial zones does make it all sort of blur together at times. The level design also could have been better, and exploring didn't always net the most exciting of rewards. It isn't all bad though. I really enjoyed the enemy designs conceptually. Failed possessions piloting rogue office equipment is a fun idea to explore. The combat has some decent weight to it as well, and when I found my groove it felt punchy and flowed nicely. The demo really hits its stride during the first major boss battle, which is a rather well designed encounter that makes good use of the newly unlocked parry ability. But after that things mostly stagnated, and I found myself sprinting past enemy encounters and branching paths just to get to the end of the demo as quickly as possible. I'm not ready to write Possessors off completely just yet, but there will have to be some gameplay feel changes before launch if I'm going to consider purchasing the full game. Possessors has no scheduled release date, it's just listed as coming soon. This one's for all the cooking mama freaks. KuloNiku Bowl Up was part of Wholesome Games' sizzle reel at the end of their presentation, but it made enough of an impression on me that I had to seek it out. The character models have that sort of Mega Man Legends look to them. I honestly didn't even care what the game was about, I just wanted to hang out with the gang. KuloNiku has you inheriting your grandmother's meatball shop and whipping up savory dishes for hungry customers. The pace is much more Valhalla than Cook Serve Delicious. There's a very loose timer to prepare each meal and serve it up to the waiting customer, but you only ever have to contend with one dish at a time, and you're given ample time to both reference the customer order and recipe book to dial things into perfection. Preparing a meal quickly nets you more cash at the end of the day, but I never really felt pressured to work faster. Even the game's competitive cooking competition segments are more like turn-based battles than mad scrambles. There are a few other elements to break things up, like some light restaurant customization options, a shop next door to purchase new ingredients and appliances, and a bit of a social link aspect where you can spend your days off with other townsfolk and form growing bonds with one another. The demo is just under an hour long, and even though this isn't really my kind of game, I'm still happy I gave it a shot. KuloNiku Bowl Up is slated to release in the third quarter of this year. This one caught my eye with its sharp art direction during the women-led game stream. Described as a time-action roguelike, Ascent to Zero has you taking on the role of the last surviving human after an extinction-level event. Using your newfound abilities, you will return to the past and attempt to alter the dark future, saving your friends from the previous fates at the hands of marauding monsters. The key mechanic in this game is the ability to stop time. Once time has been halted, enemies remain frozen indefinitely. There's no timer, you're free to wander as you please, and safely collect pickups from defeated enemies or walk straight to the dungeon's boss if you really want. But you can't attack anything in this state. You need to release your time control in order to continue killing monsters and leveling up. Doing so also unleashes a character-specific special move like a shockwave or a blade dash. Your time in the past is limited and constantly ticks down when time isn't frozen. Taking hits from enemies will decrease your timer, and when the timer hits 0, the run ends. But currency earned in the past can be used to purchase additional time for your next run. There's also a gacha mechanic at the end of each run where you can purchase pulls with your earned in-game currency for potential permanent unlocks like weapons and gear, and a base hub with a shop and various unlockable NPCs that add even more mechanics, not to mention multiple playable characters referred to as avatars. I got off to a bit of a slow start with this one. It took me a handful of runs before everything fell into place and I figured out the gameplay loop, but after it clicked I was having a pretty good time. The demo feels rather sizable, and if I didn't have a video to edit together, I'd probably invest even more time into it. Ascent to Zero's release date is still to be determined. The original creator of Patapon is back with the roguelike spiritual successor, Ratatan. A short interview came coupled with a new trailer during Day of the Devs, and I was really looking forward to giving it a try, even though I had no experience with the previous series they had worked on. Much like Patapon, Ratatan is a rhythm action game where you command an army of oddball critters to kill in your name through the power of song and violence. Hitting rhythm-based button prompts in time with the music will issue commands to your little guys, and they'll perform actions like rallying, attacking, and dodging incoming enemy forces. That's the premise at least. In practice, I found the demo pretty frustrating. Am I playing it wrong? I feel like I'm not coming to grips with the mechanics, and even when I do feel like I'm succeeding and making progress, I'm just not having fun? I feel like I should be taking an active role, switching up my commands from beat to beat to keep my enemies on their toes, but the times I stood back and spammed the attack song were the only times I ever got anywhere. It doesn't help that the forces I'm up against seem to be able to hit whenever they please, including off-beat. There are attacks I'm entirely unable to avoid because they happen before the next measure of the song even starts, and I can't issue my command. I made multiple attempts to start fresh and play the demo over, but I think I'll never warm up to Ratatan. Which is a huge bummer because I enjoy the look and the idea so much. It's a game I want to love, but I have to struggle to even like. Maybe you'll have a better time with the demo than I did. Ratatan is coming sometime later this year. This game popped up during the Future Game Show Summer Showcase with its low poly graphics and retro zombie killing action.
Phase 0.
There's been a few attempts to recapture the feeling of the original PS1 Resident Evil games, but this may be the most faithful recreation yet. Phase 0 hits all the familiar hallmarks of the classic games, the tank controls, the door opening animations, even the font choices, but still manages to avoid feeling like it's just going through the motions or chasing exactly what Capcom did in the 90s. The demo covers what I assume will be the full game's opening prologue, featuring a patient awakening in their hospital bed amidst a zombie outbreak, and having to fight their way to the ground floor in hopes of rescue. It's not especially long, but it's certainly memorable, featuring a couple effective old school scares and a really well executed final sequence that'll stick with me for a while. Once you clear the demo, you unlock a handful of bonus extras: the game's reveal trailer, a gallery of character models, and a special alternate mode where you get to play through the demo again as a bifurcated man, just a sentient pair of legs strutting around. No release date yet for Phase 0, but I will be keeping a close eye on this one. This popped up during the Future Game Show Summer Showcase. It single-handedly inspired this entire endeavor, even if it was supposed to be a ha-ha funny addition to the list. Waifu Tactical Force, or WTF, is a first-person movement shooter featuring cute anime mercenaries gunning each other down for sport. There's a playtest available on Steam if you opt in that offers you a very stripped-down version of the full game to come. This demo build only features online 2-on-2 elimination matches on a single map with a handful of preset loadouts, but the full release promises additional weapons, maps, modes, and a visual novel system where continued success in online matches results in narrative story progression. It's kind of hard to judge something like this based on such a simple demo, but I played for about an hour and I found the shooting responsive and character abilities fun, even if the bubble shield and healing grenade didn't seem to be doing much. I also got straight up dog walk, dude. Just absolutely embarrassed myself in front of whoever was unfortunate enough to get assigned to a duo with me. FPS is a young man's game, I just don't have the reflexes like I used to. But I did manage to score a couple lucky kills spamming frag grenades and hoping for the best. Oh, I also want to point out the really cool Y2K inspired presentation to the menus. It's even present here in the game's launcher, which you can grab and fling around like this if you're a bad person. No idea how long this playtest will stay open, so if you want to give it a try, I'd recommend doing so sooner rather than later. WTF is coming sometime in 2026. Coming to us from its own dedicated Devolver presentation, Ball Pit is the cross between a survival roguelike and one of those viral mobile games where you shoot dozens of bouncing projectiles at stationary bricks. Except the bricks are now hordes of the Wailing Undead. The game is divided into two halves. You have your roguelike dungeon delving, as you plunge into the depths of the pit to defeat enemies and gather resources on each run, and then there's the management sim portion, spending those hard-earned coins on rebuilding your shattered civilization, and in the process unlocking new content for the roguelike mode. The core gameplay itself will be familiar to anyone who's played one of these survival games before. Much like Vampire Survivors, defeated enemies drop glowing experience gems. Pick up enough and you'll level up, receiving a randomly selected trio of power-ups to choose from. There are also fusion pickups dropped on occasion, which allow you to either raise the level of your existing traits at random, or fuse high-level abilities together, forming even more powerful combinations. The look, the colors, the general vibe, it reminds me a lot of previously published Evolver title Loop Hero. The whole returning to your home base after each run to expand your settlement, unlock new upgrades and gameplay features. It scratches a similar itch. I'd say I mostly enjoyed my time with this one, but there were a couple shortcomings that I want to address. Gameplay is a little more active than your typical Vampire Survivors like, but still not as engaging as I would have hoped. During my 2 hours with the game, I felt there were long stretches where I was entirely checked out just waiting for stuff to happen. The game does feature the ability to increase and decrease the game speed as needed with the press of a button, but it didn't really mitigate my complaints. Of course, the lack of challenge could just be because I'm replaying what's sure to be the game's easiest level over and over again, and even looking at that reveal trailer, we can see there's crazy stuff still to come. It's a solid demo with a few unlockables to earn and additional characters to try out, but the differences between them only came down to stats on a spreadsheet, starting equipment, and a little change to the UI, which I'll admit is a nice touch. But hey, if this looks like your sort of thing and you want to try out that early build, head on over to the Ball Pit Steam page, links will be in the description. The game doesn't have an announced release date yet, but you can wishlist it for future updates. Man, I'm very happy Steam Next Fest happened right alongside SGF, because it meant I got to spend some time with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. We saw what will most likely be the final trailer during PlayStation State of Play last week, and there's no way I was waiting until the end of July to play it. Ragebound is a return to series roots with a level-based 2D side-scrolling action throwback, this time with dual protagonists, Shinobi in training Kenji Mozu and Black Spider Clan ninja Komori. The Game Kitchen previously worked on the Blasphemous series, so I knew the gameplay and visuals would be pitch perfect, but I wasn't expecting the soundtrack to go this hard. Returning composers from the classic series are here to contribute both familiar and new original tracks. Even though Ragebound is pulling from well-worn ground, it adds its fair share of new ideas to the series to make things feel fresh and contemporary. There are smart gameplay mechanics that encourage equal usage of both playable characters if you want to tear your way through stages with optimal ruthlessness. And when you lock into the game's rhythm and meet it on its terms, it feels incredible to play. It's a generously sized demo featuring 3 major stages, as well as the option to replay the first level on a more challenging difficulty once you've finished your first playthrough. The hard mode version remixes the number of enemies and the stage hazards to really ratchet up the intensity. I got kind of folded on my first attempt, so I have to get in some more practice before I take another crack at it. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound hits your favorite digital storefront on July 31st. Everdeep Aurora was part of this year's Wholesome Direct. It's a exploration-focused platformer from Nautilus Games with a rather striking art style. You play as a tiny drill-wielding kitten named Shell, interacting with a diverse underground society of other evolved animal creatures as you search for your missing mother deep beneath the earth. I wish I had more to say about the demo, but it's pretty short and doesn't feature much of the digging mechanic showcased in the trailer. You mostly just get to play a game of hide and seek with a group of kids in a dilapidated mansion. Once you find all 4, you gain safe passage to the end of the demo, and that's it. Although there is a developer message that invites you to do some more poking around to uncover secrets, including several references to other indie titles like Shovel Knight and Hollow Knight and Knight. I guess I'll have to reserve my judgment on this one until it releases next month on the 10th. Nico Nico's Kill the Music is another survival roguelike that appeared during the Southeast Asian Games Showcase. It attempts to put a rhythm-based twist on the established genre by having you attack and dodge on the beat. It's probably the least polished game I checked out for this video, but there's a bit of punk rock charm to its rough edges. The presentation is the strongest asset, featuring bold dynamic menus and character animations. The art direction is a bit hit or miss for me, but there's definitely a unified theme to the whole package that drew me to the game in the first place. Gameplay, on the other hand, is just alright. Tap along to the beat to increase your damage multiplier and complete each stage's individual goal, like killing a specific number of enemies or surviving for a set amount of time. The game's original soundtrack features songs that are simple short guitar riffs that loop throughout each stage. There are a few different ones to keep the soundscape from growing stale, and they serve their purpose as a means to maintain player rhythm, but I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to these tracks outside of the context of the game. There is a bit of a risk-reward system where before each round you can decide to increase the difficulty of the coming challenge for higher tier rewards, but even selecting the hardest setting didn't make too much of a noticeable difference in gameplay. The demo has a couple playable characters to try out as well as a handful of unlocks to work towards, but after running through it twice I think I got everything I needed out of Kill the Music. The game is supposed to launch sometime this calendar year. Probably the highest profile release in this entire video, Mina The Hollower got the center stage treatment right in the middle of Keighley's Summer Games Fest presentation. This is Yacht Club's next major IP following a successful Kickstarter campaign back in February 2022, and it looks well worth the wait. This is a top-down action-adventure game that really leans heavily into the Game Boy Color look. The 2D Zelda influence is immediately apparent at a glance, but I was surprised to discover a little bit of the Soul series hiding in Mina's DNA. There was some of this in Yacht Club's previous game Shovel Knight as well, but dying results in the loss of all collectibles on the player at the time. They need to be reclaimed from the enemy or hazard that defeated you or be lost for good. There's also a bonfire equivalent in the form of these burrows that can be found throughout the environment. You get to select a starting weapon at the beginning that will alter the course of your playthrough, but I imagine the tools you don't pick become available at later points in the full game. I went with the flail as it seems to be the default weapon seen in most of the game's promotional art, and also I like to have a little bit of range to work with. I'll keep my extended thoughts to myself on this one, as I imagine a lot of viewers want to check this one out for themselves and form their own opinions, but I'll just say it's really fun. I had a great time with it, and it's among the strongest recommendations of this video. The demo is around 20 minutes or so and features a couple boss fights and side areas to tackle. If at the end you find yourself eager for more, the full game releases on October 31st. We saw Lost and Found Co. last summer during Wholesome Games, but the new trailer they brought to the Southeast Asian Game Showcase came with a freshly updated demo. On the surface, Lost and Found Co. is a hidden object game, but to call it that somehow feels reductive, like a disservice to the ambition on display here. Developer BitEgg put so much work into this thing, creating massive, expansive levels to hunt through packed with hidden interactions and secrets to discover. Even the game's optional side quests, which I was expecting to be simple single-screen affairs, are these sprawling zones filled with detail and surprises. The presentation is top-notch. Character portraits are full of expression and dynamic movement. There are these really nice little motion comic cutscenes before and after each main story mission that just elevate the whole package. Seriously, such a good-looking game. But the best part of this newly updated demo is the addition of a player room editor. Clearing request stages unlocks new furniture sets as well as earns you coins, which you can spend in the store on additional items. Even for a demo, the amount of customization is staggering. You can assign various skins to each item or program how it will animate when interacted with, design custom lighting as needed, nest items inside of other items. All the tools are really intuitive, and after a quick minute-long tutorial, you'll be making cool rooms like this one. Check it out, here's my Gamer Boy dungeon. It's pretty much a faithful one-to-one recreation of where I actually live. Here's my cat Mimo, she even has her little teaser wand thingy, various Japanese vending machines, kitty condo, anime shame corner, my other anime shame corner, and the live-in maid keeping all my collectibles pristine and dust-free. So yeah, the room editor is why my playtime in this demo is close to 6 hours when I only intended to play for like 30 minutes. Lost and Found Co. launches sometime later this year, but if you make a cool room in the demo, send me a picture on Instagram or something, I want to see that. There you go, 12 S2F featured games you can go play for yourself right now. What was your favorite announcement at Summer Games Fest? Comment below and let me know. I realize this video was a bit of a departure from my usual shtick, but I'll be back to ripping open cardboard boxes before you know it. I'll catch you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.